Definitely in the last couple of years, we've brought forth the issue multiple times. Unsafe library conditions are unfair for staff and unfair for the community members.
I think anybody who knows me knows that I take employee safety and people feeling valued at their job really seriously. It is something we spend a lot of time on.
All right, staff at Duluth's downtown Main Library telling Fox 21 safety and security concerns are at a boiling point after a second employee was recently assaulted on the job, this time punched in the face after asking a patron to put on his mask. Good evening to you on this Thursday. I'm Dan Hanger.
And I'm Alexandra Burnley. While physical violence at the downtown Duluth Library has never been common, the latest assault on a staff member by an intoxicated man is highlighting a much bigger issue of safety and security in a very public place that often sees the city's most vulnerable population dealing with addiction and other mental health issues.
The library's union AFSCME Local 66 telling me workers are facing a significant increase of harassment, threats, and intimidation, especially since the pandemic, and they feel city administration has only really put a Band-Aid on the problem for years. You're going to be hearing from them on this issue for the first time, and tonight, Mayor Emily Larson and Police Chief Mike Tuskin responding, laying out what they believe will finally make library staff feel safer on the job and help curb bad behavior. Duluth's Main Library branch on West Superior Street is the busiest of the city's 3 branches, with hundreds of visitors daily enjoying access to computers, programming, resources, and of course, reading material.
Do you think it's a good place to find a pumpkin in a pumpkin patch?
Yeah. The crew of people that work there are so intelligent and so dedicated and so open-hearted, and they are truly public servants.
But now former library worker Julie Bernhardt walked away from the job in January.
The library was my dream job. I love to read. I'm an introvert.
She says the decision was in part because downtown library staff are facing serious safety concerns involving a small but disruptive group of visitors on a weekly and sometimes daily basis, often from people on drugs, intoxicated, or battling a mental health crisis, which turns into threats, harassment, and even violence towards staff, especially since the pandemic.
Are they going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll adjust," or are they going to, shout in your face or spit at you or punch you? And so it's a very real fear. People can be really unpredictable. And then when you're kind of in that space where you don't feel like you have a lot of support and you're on your own, it's scary.
Bridget Maresca is a library worker representing AFSCME Local 66.
Duluth residents expect for library staff to speak out and say what is happening and maybe what is going wrong in the building.
Maresca says city administration has not taken the concerns of downtown library workers seriously enough, forcing workers to deal with behavior beyond their training instead of hiring a permanent security team.
AFSCME in particular is concerned about the assaults that have taken place. City policy clearly states that the city shall take a strong stance in creating a safe and respectful work environment for all of its employees, and that hasn't necessarily been the case with the library.
There are a multitude of needs I would love to be able to address like that. It isn't possible.
But Mayor Emily Larson says she and her staff have been working on safety and security at the library since 2017, a year after she took office.
Really trying to do that big picture of what public safety can look like in a public space that we need to have open, that we need to have available for people who may not have other options. We need to have open for people who want to use library services, and we need to have open and safe and operating for staff who are doing the good, hard work of delivering library services to this community.
Larson says a private security company was contracted in 2018, but that service was not renewed after 2019 because of turnover and inconsistencies with guards that made the mission ineffective.
What we really need is someone who's consistent, who's trained, who's embedded in with the staff, understands the expectations, has the relationships with DPD when and as needed.
And that's exactly what Larson says has been in the works since last year, but admits it's now being expedited because of a recent assault of a staff member in January. She says 2 part-time library safety specialist positions are being created for a total of around $85,000 a year, something she feels will be a win-win for library staff and visitors.
So it's been really important for us to listen to the library staff. I feel like we are getting to the place that they have been asking for us to be. I really think that these positions will also be well suited to determine which behaviors are the ones that can be tolerated and which are the ones that there is no space for.
Duluth Police Chief Mike Tuskin agrees.
They will ultimately do what our officers do. They establish relationships with people. And then those relationships make it easier to have compliance, easier to have conversations, to bring things down a notch perhaps, to understand who may be struggling in any given day, to understand who is doing okay and as well.
And he says the new library safety specialist will be trained by his department, learning some of the same de-escalation tactics and conflict resolution skills his officers develop.
Just that presence in the workspaces of the people at the library will instill some level of confidence and safety in the workers. So we think it's going to be very successful.
It's a welcome change AFSCME and library workers say is way overdue, but one they hope will help them get back to the mission of the library to serve, help guide, and change lives for the better.
The library is essential. It always has been. It always should be. It should be treated that way.
These are public servants. They're doing their absolute best and they're committed to this job. And they are working on the front lines, working with the public. So they deserve our support and they deserve to feel safe and protected and supported at work.
Boat gently down the stream, merrily, merrily.
And Mayor Larson reminds everybody creating new city positions is not a fast process. Job descriptions need to be drafted and then approved by the Civil Service Board before being brought to the City Council for final approval. And then, of course, the hiring process begins. This will take about 2 months, she believes. In the meantime, Chief Tuskin says his officers will increase patrols at the library to make a bigger presence. And finally, from the library staff up to the administration, they stress 90% of visitors are following the rules, and it's important to keep supporting the library by keeping it busy because they say a busier library is a safer library.